All right, y'all, so we have progressed to the filmmaking portion of our coursework. This is something that I'm really excited about. The program that we're going to be using for this assignment is Adobe Premiere Rush, a very straightforward, very user-friendly program that nevertheless is still going to give you everything that you need to put together a really good project. So in this video, we're going to start off with some beginner steps. We're going to go over some basic organizational principles, how to begin a new job, and then we're going to go over the layout of Premiere Rush so that you have an idea of some of the options that are available to you. And make sure that if you have any questions, please reach out to me if need be. Okay? So before we get started, y'all, as you can see, I have Premiere Rush open here on my screen, but we're going to start off with something that y'all have heard me harp on several times already this semester, and that is before you go loading in your assets and you go around trying to edit and arrange them and basically trying to make them come together to make a movie, you want to make sure that they are, first of all, easy for you to locate. That will really streamline this process and prevent it from just being one big headache for you. So the way to do that, of course, is to have a folder that is made specifically for your assets. As you can see, I've got it here, Adobe Rush Assets, and then I have got a couple of subfolders as well for my videos, for my photos. You know, when you're putting together your movies, movie making is such a multimodal form of composition. You're using videos, photos, dialogue, music, maybe sound effects if you're feeling especially motivated. So make sure that you've got your asset folder, but then go ahead and categorize them into individual folders as well. Once again, this is the name of just making life a little bit easier for you when the time comes to actually assemble your footage. And I do want to take this time to remind everybody as well that the assets that I've put together here, I've got several video clips that I shot around the Clemson campus. They were shot for B-roll for another film I was making, and then I've got a couple of photos here as well. They are available in the Files section on our Canvas page. There is a file labeled Adobe Rush Practice Assets. So you can go in there and you can download these media files and you can use them for practice on your end. Please don't hesitate to take advantage of them. That's what they're there for. And that's what we're going to be working with through these instructional videos. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I've got Rush open. We want to go ahead and create a new project, and down here in the lower left hand corner you need to make sure that you give your project a name. So in my case we're going to call this English 1030 Practice. That seems okay. All right, and then it's giving me several locations where I can go to and choose media files from. Now in my case I want to stick around on the desktop because that is where my asset folder is located. Once again, I want this to be as easy to locate as it possibly can be. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to upload some photos that we're going to use on our timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and select them, and you'll notice that as I'm doing this, Rush is assigning a number to each one of these photos, and that is because Rush is going to assemble your timeline in your work view. Organizationally, it's going to do it based on the order in which you selected your media. So like this photo is going to appear first on the timeline, and then this image will appear third. All right. Now that is not something that is permanent. You can of course rearrange at a later time, but if you're somebody who's done a fair amount of pre-planning as far as their filmmaking is concerned, and you already know exactly how you want your footage, your assets to appear on your timeline, then that just makes life a little bit easier. You can go ahead and set the arrangement right here. All right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to create our timeline. And this is going to open us up into our work view. All right. So as you can see here, you've got your timeline, and this is where you're going to be doing your assembling and your editing. It's basically where you're actually creating the film, and then you've got your playback view here. We're going to take this opportunity just to give you a rundown of some of the features on Adobe Rush. Now, y'all, we're going to be I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because some of them are pretty self-explanatory. It's once again, it's a very straightforward program. But the best way to become familiarized with this is to be sure to take some time to practice in your own time. Just mess around with it a little bit with those practice assets, and just get a little bit more comfortable with all the controls that you have at your fingertips. All right, so with that being said, a couple of controls that we have over here on the left side, we have the Add Media button. This one will be one that you're clicking on early and often. It's where you're going to go and add more media as your film continues to take shape, be it photos, videos, or whatever. A pretty important piece of advice that I have for y'all as far as that is concerned is this timeline down here where you're actually doing your assembly. It's going to fill up really fast as you are working on a film. Anybody who's ever done any kind of film editing will attest to that. So what I recommend doing is I recommend uploading your media little bits at a time and working on them sort of piecemeal. I would not try to take every single thing, your dialogue, your sound effects, your music, your visuals, and trying to upload them all on there at once, just because that's really going to crowd this timeline, and when all of that pops up in there, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So I would try to take a more gradual approach to this. All right, so the Add Media button, that will be an imperative one. You, of course, got your project bin, and you can click on this to see the assets that you actually already have loaded into your timeline. You have got the scissor tool down here. This, of course, is going to be used for splitting up your visuals, something that we're pretty familiar with from having done something similar in Audition. Duplicate. And then, of course, you've got the trash can. Once again, a couple of these, they're pretty self-explanatory. I've already duplicated that image. All right, we're just going to delete that out of there. You have got the expand audio control. That's not going to do anything here because these, of course, are photos. There is no audio with them. And then you have got the control tracks. I always like to have this button clicked just because I like to know all of the editing features that I have available to me at that time, and these are just a couple more options that I have for customizing my work. All right, so I always like to have that open and visible. All right. Upper right-hand corner here, you of course have the undo and the redo buttons. You'll find that those are your friends as well during this process. You have the Add Graphics tab. This will be especially useful when we're trying to add the title of your video and credits at the end. You've got the Effects control. This is for adding things like transitions, which is something we'll get into in a future video. You've got the addition of color filters. Rush gives you a really good collection of presets to choose from. If you're somebody who's active on social media, you're probably familiar with doing something like this already. You have got the control for the speed of your visuals. This is great, especially if you're trying to achieve like that vintage speed that you get in like old movies where it seems like everybody is talking and moving incredibly fast. A lot of different ways to experiment with your footage using that control. We have the audio controls, going to be very important as well. And then we have crop and rotate, which actually does significantly more than even those two things. So actually, you're going to get a chance to use every single one of these editing options. Now, again, Premiere Rush, it does not give you the same myriad options as Adobe Premiere Pro does, but it will give you more than enough, I think. All right, so that's a pretty good rundown of the things that you have available to you. They're going to help you in your assembly and your editing. I do want to add this as well, y'all, that you can go into a full screen view if you're looking to play back your video. If you're getting near the end and you want to see what your audience is going to see, that is located right here underneath it. And as you are loading in your media, Rush is automatically going to set the orientation of your video based upon the media that you upload, whether it's going to be a landscape or a portrait. Now, in this case, this was the first piece of media that I loaded. It had the number 1 on it, and it is absolutely a horizontal image. And so that is the orientation that Rush is going to set for the remainder of my sequence. All right, so that is just one of the ways that it kind of streamlines the process for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change that. In our case for this project, project. We're probably going to keep it in this orientation, but I have not made that, I haven't made that a restriction. I mean, you make your video look how you want it to look. But you can change the orientation of your video with the control down here at the bottom right underneath the playback view. All right. So in our case, it's set to the 16:9 ratio. So again, it's got that more traditional film look. This is what I prefer. But if you're trying to use Adobe Rush in the future for making a piece of media that you want to, say, upload to a social media site like Instagram, you can change the orientation and you can give it more of a vertical look, which will fit those platforms. But in my case, I'm going to keep it horizontal just because, once again, I want it to have that sort of traditional movie look. All right, so that is our rundown of the layout of Adobe Premiere Rush. And I'll tell you what, before we conclude this video, let's go ahead and add the video elements in here as well. So let's go right back up to the Add Media button. It's going to give us several options to choose from, and we will touch upon each one of these shortly. Let's go ahead and select Your Media. All right. We're going to click on that drop-down menu. Right now we're in the Photos folder, the subfolder that I created. We're going to go right back to Adobe Rush Assets. And by the way, y'all, for your asset folder, make sure that you click the star next to it so that it is among your favorites. It's just going to make it easier to locate. All right. We're going to go into Videos. And we're just getting started out. And again, we can reorganize. So I'm going to be kind of random with the way I select them. That should add them all in there. Go off of that. And once again, y'all, the expand audio button, as you can see, we can see the audio down here, but it is such a condensed view. There's not a whole lot that we could do with that when the time comes to edit. We're going to expand that. And then just like we had in Audition, we've got the blue navigation marker here as well to move through any part of our sequence that we want. And we've got our navigation tool, which I use the absolute heck out of, especially when you're working on a video that can be pretty lengthy. I know here that even with all the assets I just loaded, this one is barely nearing the 3-minute mark. So that's going to give you a little bit more of a condensed view of what I'm working with right now. I can see the audio, I can see the videos, and we are ready to roll.